Hey there! Welcome back to another review, this time of the 1976 horror flick Eaten Alive. Now, this is also known as, I believe, Death Trap is the other title for this. This was released in the UK under the title Death Trap in 1982, and it became one of the first video nasties that was banned in Britain for its objectionable and graphic content. This is a film that is directed by Tobe Hooper, the late great Tobe Hooper. This was his directorial follow-up to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which, yeah, that's not only a hard act to follow, I would say it's practically an impossible act to follow. And you can tell that this film is trying to do a version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in terms of the way that it's put together, the music, some of the cast members, the whole, there's this redneck crazy guy who's running a motel and he's stalking the people who stay there and so on and so forth. There's a scene in the film where there's a woman who's running through the woods and she's being chased by this psycho. So and you even actually hear a chainsaw in the film in a few scenes when it comes to the sound effects. Like there's for some reason there is a chainsaw running in the background, which is probably intentional, and it adds to the uncomfortable feeling the film gives you, which is something that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre did a really good job of, is breaking you out of your comfort zone with these strange, weird noises. And this definitely does carry over that aspect. This is a film that came out in September of 1977, came and went in the box office, didn't do very well, critics weren't fond of it. Time Out London called it a trite and unconvincing movie. It gets like a 20-something% of Rotten Tomatoes. Not that that really matters to me, but if it does to you, yeah, I got a pretty low rating on there. It seems to be a film that's considered to be one of Hooper's weakest efforts. But after seeing it, I respectfully disagree. I think it's not one of his best efforts. It's not a great film, but I thought it was a decent movie. I thought it was okay. I thought it was a solid time waster. I thought Hooper's direction was really good. Tobe Hooper picks up where he left off with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and takes a pretty absurd plot of this motel owner named Judd who runs this hotel called the Starlight Hotel, which is located deep in located deep in the remote swampland of rural Texas, and he happens to have a pet crocodile that's on the premises. And he's not all there at all. Like, he's completely insane. And so there's a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of stuff. It feels like a film that could be technically a spin-off of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Neville Brand's character, Judd, I could totally see him being a distant relative of one of the Sawyers. The film also, like I said, it features stuff like the chainsaw noises. You have other things in it that are pretty similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if you're going to borrow some elements for your horror film, why not borrow some elements from one of the best horror films ever made? But that does make the film kind of feel like Hooper's trying to recapture the same magic as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with this, and it doesn't quite work, but it is still a effective film nonetheless, even though it doesn't always work. There were moments in the film where Hooper's direction is trying to make a certain scene feel like it's scary, and it just kind of comes across as weird. And I think that's the intention. Like some of the stuff with William Finley, there's a scene where he just like turns around the camera and just goes, "Whoa!" And that one just made me laugh. I don't understand what that was about. Yeah, it establishes that this character has a screw loose, but that just was laughable. Ooh! I don't know what that was about. But Hooper's direction, yeah, it's really solid. He does a great job with the low budget, with getting the most out of this location, of this hotel that's in the middle of a swamp, and he handles things really well. He does a good job with his close-up shots and his zooms and his pans and things like that. There's not a lot of really crazy direction in this. There's not a lot of stuff that really takes things and goes into some kind of strange, surreal direction with it in terms of the direction, in terms of the movement of the camera. Probably because of the limitations of the set and of the crocodile and all these other things. But he still does a good job directing the film. You can tell this is a person behind the movie who knows what they're doing. And the sequences are supposed to be creepy, are effectively creepy because of Hooper's direction. It's written by Kim Henkel, Alvin L. Fast, and Marty Rustam. The script, when it's dealing with Judd and the people who are staying in his hotel, it's pretty strong. When it's trying to deal with stuff with Stuart Whitman's character, Sheriff Martin, and this other guy who's trying to find, I believe Mel Ferrer is his name. He's trying to find his daughter. That really didn't work that well for me. That was it just felt like it was a subplot that didn't really tie together that well with the stuff with Judd, and kind of slowed it down a little bit in terms of the pacing because it wasn't as interesting or wasn't as captivating as the stuff with Judd. But I mean, for a plot that's as absurd as this, as a guy who runs a crazy psycho who runs a hotel in the middle of a swamp, and there's a crocodile who is there in a lake on the premises, it actually handles it fairly well and doesn't make it laughable, which is something it easily could have been. But I didn't feel it was. Like, I felt there was actually a genuine threat here, that this crocodile was here and was being a beast that people had to reckon with. And I definitely felt that Judd was definitely a formidable foe. In a lot of ways, he was more of a formidable foe than the crocodile. Neville Brand's performance in this is phenomenal. It's great. He's just nails it as this psychopathic hotel owner. It's a Cajun horror film. That's really what it is. And the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was more of a redneck horror movie, a horror film that takes place in the South. This is more of a Cajun horror movie, and it definitely had that vibe to it. And Tobe Hooper's really good at making films like this, that have these type of country fried sensibilities, and taking something that would seem on the surface maybe quite kind of harmless or whatever, and really, well, not so harmless, but I mean taking the idea of Southern hospitality and completely just turning it upside down. And he does that masterfully. And this is another prime example of that. The script was by the three writers. It's okay. Could be better, but it's all right. I mean, there's some fun lines of dialogue. Robert Englund's character Buck, pretty soon, like in like the first few minutes of the film, there's a fun line of dialogue where he's like, "My name is Buck, and I'm raring to fuck." So there's some fun stuff like that. And overall, the script is it's adequate. It's an average screenplay. It could be a lot worse. Stars Neville Brand as Judd, who, like I said, is top notch. He's phenomenal in the role. Mel Ferrer plays a Harvey Wood. He's fine, but like I said, I think the script doesn't do the best job with these characters, with that subplot. Carolyn Jones as Miss Hattie, who looks like she could also be a part of the Sawyer family with her, like, I don't know what's going on with her face. I think it's supposed to be like old age makeup, but it looks like she's wearing like a mask that Leatherface would wear. It was very, very creepy looking. Marilyn Burns is also in this as Faye, as a character named Faye. She's one of I think she's the girlfriend of William Finley's character, and she's the mother of the girl, the little girl who they brought in to the Angie, who's played by Kyle Richards. So she's the mother of Angie, who has her dog, gets eaten by the crocodile, Snoopy. Snoopy gets eaten by the crocodile, and then she ends up getting chased, and she ends up hiding underneath the hotel for a good chunk of the film, trying to stay away from not only the crocodile, but from Judd. Judd takes Faye, he ties her up, he kills William Finley. He tries to shoot the crocodile. He kills him with a scythe. That's his go-to weapon, is a scythe. He even killed a prostitute who is the daughter of Harvey Wood's character in the beginning of the film. And the film does a great job with the gore, with the practical effects. For a film for a 1976 movie, I would have to say even the crocodile effects I thought were pretty impressive for such a low budget production. There were some shots that you could tell it wasn't the right size crocodile, or the effect wasn't that great, but there were other shots when it was in the water that I thought looked pretty good. And the gore effects, especially by Craig Reardon, and I think he might have worked on the other stuff with the crocodile, those were really well done for the time. I mean, the blood looked like the right color. Yeah, it was, consistency was right. And it was a pretty bloody movie. So I definitely got to give the film kudos for that. I mean, it has a good amount of blood in it. And it definitely does add to the impact of the kill sequences, of the kills in the movie. It was fun to see William Finley in a different film other than Phantom of the Paradise. So it was nice to see him in this. And Robert Englund, you could tell this is a guy who had something. He had it. He had that special something that an actor needs to have to really make an impression on audiences. And you could tell that Robert Englund was an up-and-coming star just by watching this movie, and his role as Buck, who's just this asshole, this just total douchebag who is wonderfully portrayed by Robert Englund. So it was also a lot of fun to see Robert Englund in a role like this, which is a little bit different than the type of stuff that you'd see him do later in his career, post A Nightmare on Elm Street and so on. So it's a fairly solid cast. Marilyn Burns does a good job as Faye, and there's this other girl, I believe Lynette is Janice Blythe, who's played by Janice Blythe. She's a girl who runs through the woods and gets chased by Neville Brand in a scene fairly reminiscent of a similar sequence in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The film has an ending that is satisfying. Neville Brand suffers the ultimate fate and gets eaten by his own pet crocodile. Faye survives along with her daughter and Carolyn Jones. She's Miss Hattie, so this is a different character. But Clara, I believe it's Clara Woods. No, Libby, Crystin Sinclaire. So Crystin Sinclaire, who plays Libby Wood, she gets out of there alive as well. And it's at a satisfying ending. The villain gets his comeuppance. The crocodile, it seems like the crocodile just survives. I don't think they kill the crocodile. Which is nice to see. I mean, a lot of films like this, they just kill the crocodile, but it didn't seem like that was the case. It was just one of those, we'll let the crocodile be. It features a score by Wayne Bell and Tobe Hooper. There's some weird, surreal music in it, and some of the country music they used. It sounds like it's traditional country music of the time period, but because of the sequences that it's heard in, the country music takes on this sinister tone, and that was some of the most effective music in the film, was the country songs that were used in the soundtrack. Feature cinematography by Robert Caramico. Now, I heard rumors that apparently This is from Craig Reardon, who did a lot of the makeup effects on the film. There's some disagreements with the cast and some people in the studio with Tobe Hooper, and so Tobe Hooper was either replaced or he stepped down, and Robert Caramico directed part of the film. Whatever is true, I mean, or not, I don't really know for sure what exactly is true. I mean, yeah, it seems like, yeah, it was filmed entirely in the sound stages of Raleigh Studios in Hollywood, California. It had a large-scale pool that could double as a swamp. They shot on a sound stage instead of a practical location in order to contribute to the atmosphere of the film, which Tobe Hooper wanted it to be a surrealistic Twilight world, and I think he nailed that, especially with the lighting. This film is a masterclass in lighting. I mean, especially there's a lot of red lighting in this that really creates a very unsettling mood, and then there's some blue lighting as well that's used to great effect. So yeah, the lighting in this is a real highlight. And the fact that it's on the soundstage does make it so Tobe Hooper can do more with the camera and do more things and show different things. And he's less restricted because he has a set that's structured in a specific way to suit his tastes for what he wants from the film. But the movie proved to be problematic for the director, Tobe Hooper, who apparently left the set before production ended because of a dispute with the producers. And then the cinematographer, I think, finished the film. He then, of course, Tobe Hooper went on, and he still had a good relationship with the actors, and he said that Neville Brand knew and understood what he was doing completely, and it definitely did show. So yeah, there was something going on with the producers, and there's some disagreements involved, and Hooper he didn't finish the film, but it's still, you can still see his imprint on the film, despite that. And apparently, I edited the movie because it's edited by Michael Brown. I just have to, I don't know, I guess I found a DeLorean, a time machine, and went back in 1976 and edited Eden Live. I had to throw that out there. I think it's pretty funny. But so the editing is fine. I did a good job. I did a good job editing the movie. The movie's about 91 minutes, goes by at fairly quick pace. It takes a bit to get going, but once it does, it picks up pace fairly well. Other than that little bit, I mean, of course, there was the Video Nasties controversy. The film did not even get released uncut on DVD or in any format until 2000 in the UK, so it took a while for it to finally get an uncut release. Other than that, I don't really know what else to say about Eaten Alive, except it's a solid film. It's a decent movie, some good direction by Hooper, some great performances by the cast, especially Neville Brand. The concept is unique, and at the same time it's very absurd, but it ends up working. Overall, though, I would say the pacing is one of the things that lets it down. It's absurd idea and concept. They don't go as far with it as they possibly can, but then again, they also have limitations with the budget and everything. I think it also suffers from a lack of really likable characters. Neville Brand is the most interesting character in the film. The other characters are fine, but they don't really stand out in the way that a lot of other characters in Tobe Hooper films do, where you're like, okay, they're likable, they have a personality, they have charisma to them. The actors, they do a fine job. I just don't think the script gave them a lot to do to make them really leave a solid impression on the audience. So that kind of hurts some of the suspense in the movie. But other than those little things, I still like the film. And those are the things that prevent it from being a good movie or a great film or anything like that. I don't think it's as bad as the critics say it is. I definitely do recommend it if you're a fan of Tobe Hooper and if it sounds interesting to you, because it is an interesting film. And it does have some effective sequences within it. But it's not his finest hour, but it's also not his worst hour either. So anyway, I don't know what else to say about Eaten Alive except thank you for watching my review, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.